A brief overview of what we will be going over includes the external structure of the kidney, including its location, support structures, and coverings, the major blood vessels associated with the kidney, and what path the blood takes, a brief overview of the internal anatomy of the kidney, and finally, parts of the nephron, and where each of the three major processes in the urine formation take place, including filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. The external structure of the kidney consists of the renal fascia, the renal arteries, which carry blood from the kidney, the renal vein, which carries blood away from the kidney to the posterior vena cava, and lastly, the ureter, which urine passes through as it moves from the kidney to the bladder. The kidney can be found just below the rib cage, around the T12L3 vertebrae, with the right kidney being found slightly lower than its left side due to being displaced by the liver. The kidney's coverings include the adrenal gland sitting on top of it, the fibrous tissue layer on the outside, and a fat layer against the kidney. Major blood vessels and their paths. The kidney is responsible for receiving around 25% of total blood volume per minute. The blood is brought to the kidneys by the renal artery, that is a branch of the descending aorta. The renal artery is split into segmental arteries that further branch off to form interlobar arteries that make their way through the renal columns in order to reach the cortex. The interlobar arteries branch off into arcuate arteries, cortical radiate arteries, and finally into efferent arterioles. From here, the blood goes to the efferent arterioles, capillary beds, and is returned to the vena cava. Internal kidney. The internal anatomy of the kidney consists of the outer region known as the renal cortex and the inner region known as the medulla. Renal columns that are made of connective tissue that go through the medulla and separate its renal pyramids and renal papillae. Renal pyramids are cone-shaped structures that contain nephrons and tubules that help transport fluid to the kidney, and renal papillae being bundles of ducts that transport urine into minor and major calyxes, which make up the renal pelvis, and where excess fluid and waste become urine. The renal hilum, which serves as an exit and entryway for structures such as vessels, nerves, lymphatics, and ureters. The renal pelvis transports the urine to the ureter with the help of the renal hilum. Nephrons, and where the three major processes in urine formation occur. The nephron is a microscopic tubular structure that works to filter blood and produce urine. As the nephron filters blood, a fluid called filtrate is produced and travels through the nephron and ultimately ends by becoming waste-filled urine. The glomerulus sits in the Bowman's capsule, which is located right here. The Bowman's capsule participates in the filtration of blood from the glomerular capillaries and creates a urinary space that filtrate uses. And the renal tubular, a continuous set of tubes which the filtrate flows through. The glomerulus is made of a dense capillary that filters blood by particle size. It receives the blood from the artery, known as efferent arterioles. Afterwards, the blood that is not filtered leaves the glomerulus via the efferent arteriole. The three major processes of urine formation include filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. In regards to filtration, the initial movement of molecules from the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule, the volume of filtrate formed by the kidneys per minute is determined by the glomerular filtrate rate. This rate determines how well your kidneys are working. It is based on the hydrostatic pressure of capillaries. Colloid osmotic pressure of the capillaries, OPC, and hydrostatic pressure of the interstitial fluid in the Bowman's capsule. Hydrostatic pressure is what pushes the fluid against the surface. It also favors filtration of substances through filtration membranes into capsular space, while the colloid osmotic pressure opposes filtration by pulling water back into the glomerular capillaries. In respect to reabsorption, most of the fluid and its contents are reabsorbed through fluid in the PCT loop of Henle Henle, DCT, and the collecting ducts. Most water is recovered during PCT, the loops, and DCT. Only 10% reaches the collective ducts, however. PCT, or proximal convoluted tubular, receives filtrate from the glomerules. It is from this point that the urine starts to form. Around 67% of water, sodium, and potassium that enter the nephron is reabsorbed into the PCT and returns to circulation, while 100% of glucose, amino acids, and other vitamins, such as organic substances, are also recovered. The loop of Henle consists of the descending and ascending portion and is specialized to enable recovery of sodium and water that were filtered out. The vasa recta brings nutrients and oxygen to the medullary nephron segment and removes the water and solute that is added to the medullary interstitium. The descending and ascending portions of the loop of the Henle consists of the countercurrent multiplier system. While sodium chloride is being reabsorbed, the medulla becomes very salty. This triggers the reabsorption of water in the descending loop. When more water leaves the descending loop, the concentration of solute and urine concentration of the filtrate increases. As sodium chloride approaches the deepest portion of the ascending loop and being reabsorbed, filtrate osmolarity decreases, so as it enters the distal convoluted tubular, it has lessened. This is known as the countercurrent multiplier, which comes from the descending and ascending loops being next to each other, and their fluid flowing in different directions. It can also be stated that active transport can be found in the ascending loop, as sodium is being reabsorbed in this process. While osmosis is seen in the interstitial space of the medulla. The distal convolute tubular, or DCT, reabsorbs another 10 to 15% of the water. The aldosterone hormone is present before formed. Urine enters the collective ducts. Regulating urine volume by regulating the amount of water that is being reabsorbed is a part of this process. This is a very important role in maintaining the body's hydration levels. Lastly, secretion is the movement of molecules from the bloodstream to the interstitial fluid through the renal tubular. It occurs in the PCT, the loop of Henle, and the collecting duct. It allows urea, which is the main source of nitrogen in the body, to be disposed of by urine.